Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. I've got a great guest. His name is Dave Boyce, and it's Winning by Design. We are going to talk about how to architect your revenue and creating recurring impact. And there's some really great stuff in this episode. So I highly recommend that you take a few minutes, get a pen and paper, and write down the ideas here. Study this episode. It's a real good masterclass for you. Those of you who are interested in growing your revenue on one side of the business, lowering your expenses on the other side, whether it's operational hard expenses, in other words, improving your EBITDA multiple, freeing up cash flow, giving you a higher exit valuation, and in the process, streamlining processes and systems, reducing your stress. Reach out to me, Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com. All right, let's go talk to Dave. Please get a pen and paper out. You're going to love this episode. Here we go. Hey, Dave, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Thanks so much for being here today.
Amazing, Doug. I love it. Let's love the energy. Hopefully, we can keep it up for 25 minutes.
Oh, we sure will. So why don't you tell everybody, give the backstory here, and let's set the frame for the call.
Yeah, just me and my background.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, Doug, I think we probably have similar backgrounds. I've helped build and sell a number of companies, five as an operator, four as an operator, three as a kind of investor and advisor, and I'm actively involved in many right now. And that goes back to, and this kind of speaks to my age, but it goes back to pre the word SaaS, pre the acronym SaaS. Like my first company was a company called Profit Logic. We built it out of Boston, right in your neck of the woods. It was retail price optimization. We were hosting predictive algorithms in the cloud, but we didn't have a cloud, so we called it an application service provider. And we had servers that were living in these colo locations. We were processing massive data sets and then delivering optimized prices back to retailers. Went from there and then we did have the word SaaS. We sold that company to Oracle and then went and built a succession of other companies. And so been in SaaS since the inception of SaaS.
You know, it's fascinating to talk to somebody who actually was pre-SaaS because like my kids, right? They don't know a day before they don't know a day before SaaS, right? They're in their
Sure.
they're in their
Or even
20s.
before the iPhone for some of my kids.
Yeah. I in fact, my youngest daughter, I remember one time we were driving in Texas, and the new iPhone 4 came out, and I bought iPhone 4s for everybody, and she's like on the iPhone. She's like 6 years old or whatever, right? On the iPhone, just whizzing through it, and she looked up at me and she goes, "Hey, Dad, when did you get your first iPhone? Not iPhone, but your first cell phone?" I said, let me think. Yeah, I was 28, right? I said.
Yeah.
And she looked at me, Dave, like I was some dinosaur from the past. Her brain couldn't process the fact that, and then I said, and it didn't have data and it cost $1 a minute to talk. And she's like, "What? You paid to talk?" Right.
Yeah, well, we're old, Doug.
I found that funny. Well, let's talk about, I mean, look, you've sold, I think you built it about 7 companies. I think you have built them and sold them.
Yeah.
And you have this process now on how, people in sales or sales leaders can achieve much faster growth through revenue architecture. Did you use that same type of revenue architecture in those companies that you have helped build and sell, or was it kind of I learned as I went along and here we are now?
It is learning as we go along. And by the way, we're in a new era. So now we've got to put on our learning hats again because AI is changing everything. But
Yes.
but Doug, I mean, the first company, Profit Logic, that we talked about, our average ACV when we sold the company to Oracle, average was $1.2 million.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
a big ticket. That's a
Yeah.
certain kind of sales process. And the next company that I did called Fundly, our average ACV was $1.2 thousand. That's a completely different set of motions. I had to completely go back to the drawing board. I actually moved my family from Boston to Silicon Valley to do that company, and I had to figure out everything about self-service. We didn't have the acronym PLG at the time, but that's the play we were running. Product-led growth. It had to be self-service because you couldn't afford to deploy sales people against a $1,200 average
Correct.
ACV, and then everything in between, Doug. And then as we figure out like what works for which sectors of the market and what works in which kind of eras of history, because we're having to update now for AI and everything. You stay curious, you stick to first principles, you apply what works, you adjust as you go along. But we do have a set of frameworks at Winning by Design that kind of define what those first principles are, allow you to think through what's different if you're going product-led growth versus mid-market versus enterprise. And it does fast forward, some leaders' learning journey into how to build a go-to-market engine.
It's fascinating subject because I talk a lot about finding the ideal right fit buyer and then marketing and prospecting the ideal right fit buyer, right? Which, the sectors of market you were talking about. And then within that sectors of market, who's the ideal right fit buyer, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I find so many companies, and I found this crazy research. I thought it was wrong. And then I started looking at the research, and it said that Harvard School of Business, Wharton School of Business, I believe Marketo, and a couple other big names, they all found that 97% ish of people selling or companies trying to sell, in part or in full, don't know their ideal right fit buyer.
Wow.
And
What
I
a
was like, wow, this is really high, right? And
oh,
so it's kind of like a shock, like going from 1.2 million to to $1,200,
right,
$1,200, right? And
right.
ACV. Do you find curious? Do you find that part of the designing a revenue architecture is about finding that right market sector, that right target buyer, and really going after that ideal target buyer, or is it also, have some flexibility in that process? What's the better route?
Oh, for sure, the former. I love that you start there because everything starts with the customer. Like it's the customer and the impact that we're going to deliver to the customer that we want to keep at the very center. Okay, so if I want to deliver, because we're building recurring revenue businesses, right? So and recurring revenue is a function of recurring impact. Nobody's going to want to pull their checkbook out a year from now. We don't use checkbooks anymore, but I'm just saying that. Nobody's going to want to pull their checkbook out a year from now and write you another check for the impact they didn't get during the first year. They're only going to write you another check if you did deliver impact during the first year, which means we got to deliver impact. That means we got to understand who the customer is. We got to understand literally who that ideal right fit customer is, how they experience kind of their work, their professional life, their work life, how they make progress, and then we got to help them achieve that impact with our solution. And when we color outside the lines, Doug, like let's say we have an ideal right fit buyer and we do actually understand it, and then here comes another person into our kind of sphere or another potential customer into our sphere that's two rings out from the center of the bullseye.
Hmm.
And they say, "Hey, could your product do this?" And you're like, yeah, I never really thought about it, but yeah, probably actually." And then you entertain that conversation, and then you're like, you know what, with a couple of tweaks, let me get a solution engineer in here. We'll figure it out. We'll make sure that it works for you. Okay, fine. Maybe you get the deal. But then you're going to fight year after year to keep that deal because you're trying to deliver impact with a solution that wasn't designed for their use case.
Yep.
And you're trying to keep up with it with them with professional services, with customizations, with customer success. And maybe you'll keep them for a while, but they're going to suck way more energy. What if you just went after all buyers that were in your right fit buyer inner ring and you just kept it easy on yourself and you made everything repeatable and you built a flywheel? That's going to be done within a tight ring of a well-defined right fit buyer. And that could be, to your point, the $1,200 customer. Okay, then there's a certain set of processes that I can afford and that will deliver value and that I could turn the crank on versus a $1.2 million customer, different set of processes, different set of kind of success criteria, even different humans that you would hire into that system to find and service those $1.2 million customers.
That is so well said. Firstly, I'm guilty of doing what you just talked about. I
Oh,
have
we
done
all
that.
are.
Yeah, right. And I know others are too. By the way, those of you who just really that set in, happy holidays to you. There's your gift for the month
Yeah,
of December.
that'll
Um,
keep you awake tonight.
Darn Dave and Doug, I don't like them anymore. But the reality is that is a huge gift if you just got this one concept down. Because here's the thing: when you know the ideal right fit buyer, when you know that market sector, as Dave's talking about, you know what to say for messaging too, and you know what not to say. And all of us, let's just take guys because we make this mistake all the time. I don't know, our significant other is talking about something, and then we go right into decision making mode, and we try to solve that. And I'll speak for myself. My wife just looks at me and goes, "I didn't need you to say anything. I just wanted you to listen. Your message sucks." That type of thing. And so, analogous to when we don't know who our ideal right fit buyer is and we don't have our messaging dialed in, that's not going to give that recurring impact that you're talking about, Dave, right?
Yeah, I mean, it will burn way too many calories trying to chase that recurring impact when it's a not ideal right fit buy because we're learning as we go, right? Like I just talked to somebody yesterday in our company. He wants me to help him sell to a financial services company, like a bank. Cool. We haven't done a lot of work with banks. We've mostly done work with recurring revenue SaaS companies.
Mm,
So we have all of the vocabulary, all of the bona fides, all of the use cases, all the examples, all the frameworks, everything. If I go into a bank, I'm going to be, and he went to me because I'm, an executive and he thinks that I can learn on the fly and he thinks that I'll be able to pick up their signals. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But what about when we hand it off to the delivery crew? What are they going to do? What about when we hand that off to the kind of customer success crew? What are they going to do? We're just going to struggle with that account if we were to bring it into the family versus selling a next SaaS company. And there's a good reason, Doug, why you and I have made this mistake because we operate in a world of quotas, right? And we operate in a world of targets, and we want to celebrate the victory of the sale. So
yeah.
if we can just get it and then we can celebrate it, then we'll live to fight another day and we'll worry about that later. Problem is in a recurring revenue business, it's another day and another day and another day and another day and another day until they finally flush out of the system. Meanwhile, we burn so many calories trying to keep that not ideal right fit customer happy that we could have spent on probably four or five ideal
Yeah.
right fit
Okay.
customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just a lesson we got to learn.
It's so, and those of you who aren't SaaS companies, you can still take this lessons, right? So, some of you, let's say you're in, I don't know, a contracting business of some sort, landscaping, architecture business, whatever. You have maintenance agreements that you usually put in place, for certain businesses. You have repeat buyers, you have loyalty programs, you have different things. But in just forget all that for a second. If you can get the buyer to come back again and again and again and again because you're creating that recurring impact and they're coming back to you. You're a restaurant. I don't know, maybe you own a bunch of you want your clients to keep coming back to your restaurant, and creatures of habit, human beings, generally we only go to our 4 or 5 favorite restaurants anyways. So how can you create that recurring impact in your business in order to get them to, it's called increasing buying frequency, really, or and so how do you get that to happen on a regular basis? That's what we're talking about. And so, and we're not saying you can't go into other markets or dabble into other markets. What Dave's saying is so smart, because what he's saying is you're going to waste time and energy and money burning in that market because you got to learn the business of the market business you're going into. And so you might understand business like, hey, this is how I sell and this is all the bottom line numbers. But the moment you enter into another market you don't understand, in the medical field, insurance, whatever it is, that you're doing today, there is a time burn that's going to happen for you to learn that market segment. And if you plunge head into it, which is what I'm hearing, Dave, some people have done, right? They plunge head into it. It can burn a lot more time and a lot more cash and a lot more calories than you want to burn off. So no one's saying you can't have market, look at other markets or anything. That's just, sometimes you got to do that to expand your business, but just tread into it, not like you're running a 100-yard dash in 4 seconds. That's what I'm hearing as the message. Am I accurate, Dave, or is this?
Yeah, I think it's super well said, and you got to think about all opportunity costs too. And you already said it, right? Do I want to burn my calories over there, or do I want to burn them over here? And I'll just take it one step further. I love how you kind of brought that home with favorite restaurant and and repeat frequency of repeat purchase. Now think about who your current customers will attract into your business. So if I've now gone and recruited a non-ideal right fit customer and I'm burning all these calories trying to keep them, and let's say that we're successful. Amazing. Hopes and dreams came true, right? Now they go bring me two more of those really high calorie customers that are not in my right fit, ideal right fit target. Oh, geez, now I got to triple the calorie over there. Eventually, that could be another node of market that I want to go after. So, to your point, if I want to do it deliberately, great. Do it deliberately with the intent to follow on, follow on, follow on, and you're going to build another market node. But if you just did it because you wanted to close your quarter and then they start pulling their peers in, now you got a big mess on your hands. Why
Yeah,
did you create that? Let's just
yeah.
stay home and play the home game.
It's okay to test the market segment, folks. But what we're saying is, what Dave's saying is so important. It's uncanny we're having this conversation, Dave, because I just talked to a friend of mine who's a commercial realtor,
Hmm.
and I said, "How's it going?" He goes, I stepped out of my lane and I did this deal, and I'm now in the middle of this, and it's like eating up all my time, and I'm frustrated and I'm irritated, and I'm glad you called so I can, vent on you, that type of thing. He's a good
Yeah,
friend. And I said, let me guess, you're not making any money on this one? He goes, no, I'm losing money.
sure.
And I
And
said,
the
well,
prize for that is that maybe they'll refer two other money losing customers.
exactly. Exactly. Right. And what I think the old statement when I was growing up was birds of a feather flock together. I think that's what it
Totally.
was, right? And again, folks, this is not negativity. This is wisdom talking, right, over a period of time. And what we want you to please understand is you can go into other segments, but test them and don't plunge head onto them. And, but if you have more ideal right fit buyers in your market segment and you're not doubling down on those people, then you're working a lot harder. So those of you who are stressed and you want to have an easier time, work with people that are going to have less stress on you, really, when it comes down to. And if your whole client base is like that, well, maybe this isn't the business for you at that point in your life, right?
Yeah, at some point, hopefully, we do get good at our home games and we can win them over and over. That is indeed the positive spin on this, Doug, is like when you do the same thing over and over with customers you understand really well and you figure out how to formalize, I don't know if that's a word,
Yeah.
uh, the delivery of impact for those customers, that just becomes a home game and it becomes a flywheel. And those customers bring in more customers and everything feels like water flowing downhill. That's where we want to live when we have what's called product or go-to market fit. Like we figured out our ideal right fit customer, we figured out our go-to-market process, we figured out how to deliver impact, and we're just doing it over and over and over.
And so curiosity, when we figure this out, because a lot of people I talk to, when I ask them certain things like, why don't you pitch me as, you are I'm your ideal buyer, pitch me, right? And it's then they come out of the gate like, well, at our company, we provide 5-star service and we're doing this and we're great and our products are great. Our services are great. And you should buy from us because we're great and everybody knows we're great. So, and it's that type of statement that comes out. And I'm like, well, what's in it for the buyer? What's the perceived value for the buyer? So, is there any, and again, we never talked about this, so this is an unfair question, but is there any advice you could give anybody on, okay, we found our ideal right fit buyer. Now, how do we go to that ideal right fit buyer messaging?
Yes, for sure. Um, so winning by design, we talk about impact. I've used that word a bunch. And impact, it is the core through line from consideration through purchase, through onboarding, through engagement, repeat purchase. It's that whole customer journey. Impact is the through line. It's the common thread. But if I'm just meeting a prospect for the first time, like you just proposed, Doug, I'm not going to start by talking about me. I'm going to ask you about you. And if I've steered into someone who looks like the ideal right fit customer, then a lot of what I hear back from you is going to sound familiar to me, and I'm going to build credibility by asking smart follow-up questions. So I'm looking for a framework called SPICED: situation, pain, impact. There's the impact word. And then critical event and decision. Those are kind of closed criteria. But situation, pain, and impact, that's what I want to learn about from you. So I'm like, hey, Doug, tell me why we're on the phone today. Like, what's going on? Tell me a little bit about your business. Help me understand kind of what your current kind of setup is. And is there something about it that's painful? Help me understand your pain. Tell me more about that. What is a regular day like? Well, you know what? That sounds like this other customer of mine in the same industry. They were facing this following things, and we were able to do the following, and they were able to together, and they were able to achieve the following impact. Does that sound something like something that would be interesting to you? What would that mean to your business? Let's quantify that. Okay, cool. Now we got a common objective. We've aligned around your situation. I played that back to you. I made sure I understood it right. We aligned your pain, and we aligned around a potential impact that we could go target together. Nothing about me at this point, just about how can we help you.
So, please write this down, folks. Dave said this. What does it mean to your business? Excuse me. What does it mean to you and your business, right? What does it mean to you and your business? If you're not asking that question when you're talking to someone, you're missing the whole point of the conversation because people emotionally move. Like all of you have ever seen a little child, by the way, human beings just grow older, but we're still little kids in big bodies, right? So the child acts on emotion. That's why they laugh out loud and everybody thinks it's cute because it's like they're just emoting whatever, but they also emote when they're not happy, right? And so for human beings, as we grow older, we tend to sort of tamper down those emotions, right? We don't display them as much. Hey, somebody might judge me. A lot of times people think that. Um, but if you ask that question, what does it mean to you and your business? You are now bringing them back to the emotional side of the business, emotional side of them. And there's always two sales in every sale, which is the business return on investment they're going to get and the personal return on investment they're going to
Mm,
get.
gold.
And folks, if you're missing the personal return on investment, which is a lot of people who do, you're missing a lot of sales because, it might be like, oh, yeah, you can improve margins here. This delivery process gets a little bit better. But what does that mean in terms of the personal impact? I'm going to use your word, Dave, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The personal impact on that individual, less stress, higher repute. It's not just about dollars and cents. It's what does that mean? Is this person going home every single day stressed out, having fights with people on the highway because they cut them off on the highway? You know what I mean? Like what happened? And so if you can help on those two sides of the equation, and that question I think is paramount, is key to ask that
Yeah.
question.
And
They're going to give you answers.
in psychology, Doug, I think this is where you're going. So sorry if I jumped the
No, that's good.
jump the script here. But one of those two things leads and the other one follows. And the one that leads when it comes to our decision making is emotion. We're going to make the decision based on emotion. We're going to justify the decision based on the math. So, but it's emotion that's going to cause us to make that initial commit. And then we're going to justify it by building like a business case or an ROI or something like that. But we don't make decisions. We don't commit to decisions based on the math. That's just it's pretty sterile. It helps us stick to our decisions. It helps us sell our decisions. It helps us build alignment around them. But the initial decision is an emotional decision that we're going to help steer someone into by just asking them questions about themselves. Getting you know, what I like to think about, Doug, is there a magic moment in this conversation? I know we're talking sales strategy, so I think we're on the same wavelength there, where I could scoot around the table and get shoulder to shoulder with you and look at the problem together
Mm.
with you. Okay, so that's the problem. Good. Let's take a look at that. That's where the pain is. Cool. Well, how would we solve that? Let me give you some ideas. Let's think about how we. That's very different than an across the table conversation where I'm pitching you and you're evaluating my pitch. And it's a magic moment if you can get there.
Yeah, you're peer to peer at that point versus salesperson to buyer.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
you're having what I call a conversation, a conversion conversation versus a sales conversation. And I love what you said about the emotion and the math. I never thought of, it was always emotion and logic, right? That's kind of how I
Sure.
learned it growing up. But I love that math. So I'm going to create something here. It's called EME, EME.
Okay.
Feel free to steal it,
There you go.
borrow it, whatever. Um, Emotion, math, because we do human beings. First, it's the emotion gets us to move. We justify with the math, and I agree with you 100%. But we then justify the math with another emotion.
Okay.
And that's what I have found. So it's like, oh, this makes sense. I'm going to feel this way or better about now I'm confident about this decision. It goes back to that. So EME, Emmy.
Uh, so in other
Th-
words, I
thank,
do the math and I bring myself back into that justification actually gives me comfort. Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
emotion.
It's
Yeah.
an emotive state. It comes back
Yeah.
to us.
Got
Um,
it.
it's like anything. We buy a house, right? And then we look at the math and we go, oh, we can do this. And then when we get in after we buy the house, we feel good. No, we own something. I feel, a certain way about that. Hopefully, if it's a good sale, you feel, confident you did the right decision about how your your kids might grow up in the house, significant other, all the fun you might have. You have home ownership. You feel maybe you've made your place a little more in life, right? Where those are all emotional things that we tend to do. Um, so, Dave, I have a question. When you're architecting revenue, it is the customer journey and the the recurring impact you're making through the full customer journey, correct?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yep.
When we get to the end, like, the customer journey, we get to the end, customer service, if you will.
Sure.
They've already went through the whole process. They're at the end now. How do we loop them back to the beginning again? In
Love it.
other words, it should be a circular close, right? Not
Yeah.
just a linear line. Because a lot of times people, when they talk about customer journey, they go, oh, we sold them. Customer service now handles this. And
Yeah.
that's it. Right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Such a good topic. So Doug, I just wrote a book called Freemium. It is
Oh, cool.
it's based on that experience that I had trying to build the $1,200 ACV company. How do you build these flywheels? And a lot of those flywheels are depend on exactly what you're talking about. And we call that in product-led growth land, we call that a growth loop. Okay, so what's a growth like? There are different types of growth loops. One is the one that you described. So I come through as an individual customer, I commit to the solution, I achieve impact with it, and now I, the initial customer, come back and purchase again.
Mhm.
In a recurring business, that would be a renewal. I just sign up, I just click to accept the terms of my second year, click to accept the terms of my third year. In a reoccurring business where it's not a renewal, I'm going to come back and purchase again. So that's one. A second type of growth loop would be I recruit other people within my company to to buy the same product or service. So this has been good for me. Let's spread it out to the department. This has been good for me. Let's spread it out to the whole company. So that would be, a software service, a gym membership, a dry cleaning service, something that can expand within the walls of my company. And then a third type of growth loop would be, I actually don't care if someone's in my company or not. I'm gonna recommend this service to them proactively, or when I get asked, I'm gonna tell them, or I'm gonna proactively and recommend it. And there are mechanical growth loops built in, like referral programs that we've all seen, Doug, and sometimes those are more structured than others. But that's another way that I can pull people into the front end of that funnel without having had to do all of the initial startup energy work of a cold call. So these growth loops actually get the system working for you because you get customers working for you versus you working for the system every single time, cold start every single time.
So that's fascinating. So there's, I got an internal growth loop inside the regular customer base, right?
Yeah,
The customers. I got an internal growth loop with inside the organization itself.
yeah.
And then we have an external that's going out in the form of external, right? Can we just question, because I'm curious on this. And by the way, folks, a lot of times I learn more from my guests than they learn from me. So I'm just, this is me trying to get Dave to give me some information. Yeah, truth and transparency. Um, can we also create an external loop within the internal, like i.e. customer referrals from the original base and from our internal employees or whatever that we're now extending out externally as well?
Yeah. Um, I talk about seven different growth loops in my book, and I think you can get as creative as you want, and you can kind of slice it as thin as you want. But I love where your brain is going. Really, what actually happens at the center of this. Um, so think about the traditional sales and marketing funnel. It's wide at the top, narrow at the bottom, awareness, consideration, education, selection, and eventually I make a commitment. That's the sale. And many of us say, okay, done, right? We sold, let's move on. We'll go to the next quarter, go to the next customer.
Yeah,
What you're encouraging us to think about is no, not done.
exactly.
Not done. We're done, but the customer's just beginning. Like literally, when they sign the contract is the beginning of their journey. So then what happens from there? So at Winning by Design, we turn that on its side. We make it a sideways funnel, and then we open the funnel up. So on the left, we come in from the left and we narrow, narrow, narrow to the middle. Then we open up towards the right. It looks like a bow tie. We call it a bow tie.
Hmm.
And that opening up is the expansion of usage or repeat purchases within the same customer base. So now we got a bow tie, right? So and all of the compounding in a business happens on the right side of the bow tie.
Mm,
It all like that's where all our repeat customers are. That's where all our referral customers are. That's where all of our expansion is. And each of those things is an instance where the system is working for you, and it all runs on impact. So if I don't ensure impact, like if I'm a hit and run salesperson and you bought the timeshare from me, I don't care what happens after that. Guess how many referrals you're going to get out of that? None. Guess how many repeat purchases you're going to get out of that? None. You're going to have to go cold find every new timeshare customer, and you're going to be burning bridges and laying waste to the land, and you're going to have to move cities every few years in order to stay in business. We don't want that. We actually want to build a sustainable, self-reinforcing customer base that's not only expanding on its own, but also pulling new customers in. And that means they got to have a great, impactful experience that then fuels that.
all right. So all of you are listening, go buy a bow tie. I don't care if you go to a secondhand shop. I don't care where you get this bow tie. Create it out of paper, whatever you want. Get a bow tie. And then on the right side of the bow tie, write the word leverage and expansion. And because what I heard you say, Dave, is that right side of the bow tie is really the true leverage you can get from your clients, right? On the left side, we got a one-time sale. On the right side, we've got multiple sales that could come out of that process. I'm not kidding you all. Go get a bow tie, stick it on your desk, tape it to your wall. I don't care where you put it. Just see it every day. Because if you just follow that piece of advice alone, what Dave just mentioned, you will absolutely sell more. There's no way you can't because you'll be thinking leverage and you'll be thinking, how do I expand the sale?
I own a bow tie. I'm going to put it on my desk now, Doug. Based on that advice, I will do it. And we could connect those two concepts, your concept of an ideal right fit customer
Mhm.
and the bow tie. So now think about I'm bringing a customer in the left-hand side of the bow tie. I get them all the way to a sale, and now they're on the right-hand side of the bow tie. If it's an ideal right fit customer, impact is what? 90% assured?
Yeah.
It's super easy because it was the landscape architect, customer of my dreams. I've done 100 residential landscape architect plans, and here's another residential landscape architecture plan. Boom, done. Amazing. Versus this is this is a beachfront commercial real estate, multi-use landscape architecture plan. I don't know anything about that. Like I
Yeah.
bring that in there, that's going to suck a lot of calories. So if I want my machine to compound for me, I want to go get the next residential customer, the next residential customer, the next residential customer, and they're going to pull in their neighbors. They're just going to, hey, who did your architecture? Oh, this is who did it. Here's their card. It's just going to start working for you. That beachfront commercial real estate thing is never going to refer another ideal right fit customer to you.
Makes total sense. We used to do something early on, like in called the best buyers neighborhood. Like if we were a real estate agent, we would go to those multi-million dollar home neighborhoods
Yeah,
and we would door knock it. And we
yeah,
would try because if they can afford a multi-million dollar home, chances are if they know somebody also who can afford at least $1 million home or a multi-million dollar home as well. And so you could expand your influence through there. When you would knock on the door, they'd be like, no, we're not going to sell our house right now. Can we stay in touch with you? Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what, though? John down the street mentioned
yeah.
he's at 21. I'm at, 6, right? Laney Lane or whatever. And you could go talk to John and then you could say, well, I just talked to Gary here at 6 and he had mentioned, right? So you kind of get that bow tie expansion just in the door knocking side of that equation. So folks, if you're I know some of you are probably scratching your head a little right now going, "Oh my gosh, how much money have I lost over a period of time?" Don't do that. You got to focus from today forward and focus on the bow tie and mix in the right ideal right fit buyer strategy that we were talking earlier. Dave, we could talk all day because this is like so energizing to me. How do people get a hold of you, and what's the best way to learn more?
Yeah, thank you so much. So winningbydesign.com is the best place to learn more about the bow tie, to learn more about Spiced. This is an offer. This is called Growth Journal. It comes out quarterly. It is free. It's basically Harvard Business Review for growth executives. The digital version is free. You can find that on winningbydesign.com as well. It dives into the science behind all of these concepts. That's where I would recommend starting. If you love that, you can join the Winning by Design Growth Institute. But you get a lot of value for free just out of this journal, Doug, and I'd love to see people on that list.
Awesome. So go to Winning by Design, uh, get the Growth Journal, the digital
Yep.
version of the Growth Journal,
Yeah.
and you can start the process. And if you have
Yeah.
more questions, you can on the website they can hit the contact or whatever and get in touch with you
Sure.
all.
And hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn, Doug. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dave, thanks so much for being here on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I appreciate you bringing your AAA plus game here. I really do. And folks, those of you who have a little deeper interest, now's the time. Go to the website. Don't wait. The law of diminishing intent will kick in. It's just the way it works. It's not because you're not a nice person or smart. It's just because we all get busy and then other things start to take priority on our time. So if you will reach out to Winning by Design right now, go get the growth journal and, it's going to take you 2 minutes. All right, Dave, thanks again for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. I'll send you a picture of my bow tie on my desk.
Awesome. I'll send you mine too.
All right.
I love what we talked about growth loops. Think about your growth loops. Think about the bow tie, right? When you're bringing people in, how do you leverage and expand on the other side of the bow tie? How do you create multiple growth loops within your business? How do you create recurring impact from day one, hopefully to eternity, by having recurring clients coming in one way or another into your business, whether they're doing it on a subscription model, whether they're doing it on a model where their buying frequency is consistent over a period of time. What can you do to create recurring impact in your business? I would really hold a strategy session with the members of your company and actually workshop that idea. It's a wonderful idea to do so. And again, if you want, reach out to Winning by Design and go get your growth journal. Those of you who are interested in increasing your multiple on your EBITDA, in other words, giving you more cash flow and giving you a higher exit valuation for today and future, those of you who are looking to raise that revenue up, lower those expenses, create streamlined systems, processes, workflows, whether it's human or AI, and reducing the stress of yourself maybe and people in the company, making happier employees, reach out to me at Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com. That's my email address, Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com. Some of you prefer LinkedIn, Doug Brown 123. All right. Until next time, workshop that idea first, but go out and sell something, sell a lot of it, play win, win, win. That means three people win, you, the buyer, and someone else. And do not discount when you don't have to, which is almost all the time. As long as you're conveying that value perception that Dave and I were talking about in your messaging and you're working with that ideal right fit buyer, you will find that discounts are minimized or a thing of the past. All right. Remember, when you sell something at a discount, you've got to sell a multitude of things to actually make up for that discount. All right. Until next time, go be brilliant like you are. This is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategy Podcast saying to your success.